In the shimmering heat of the Arabian Peninsula, nestled between regional giants and geopolitical turbulence, lies the small but ambitious state of Qatar. With a population smaller than many global cities and a landmass dwarfed by its neighbors, Qatar has found an unconventional path to global relevance. While oil and gas wealth provided the initial thrust, it is in the skies and in the polished cabins of a state-owned airline that Qatar has discovered one of its most potent tools of influence: Qatar Airways. At first glance, an airline may appear to be a business like any other, focused on true profit margins, route optimization, and customer satisfaction. But Qatar Airways was never just an airline. From its inception, it has been a vehicle of vision, a flagship of national strategy intricately tied to the country's soft power ambitions. The goal was never limited to moving passengers from point A to point B. It was about moving perceptions, about placing Qatar on the mental map of millions across the globe, about projecting the image of a modern, connected, and sophisticated state that transcends its geographical limitations. The airline's rapid ascent in global aviation has been nothing short of calculated audacity. Founded in 1993 and relaunched in 1997 under the directive of the Qatari royal family, Qatar Airways has consistently defied the odds. In less than 3 decades, it transformed itself into one of the most respected airlines in the world, known for its luxury, its expansive network, and its flawless branding. But the question is not how it succeeded, it is why. Why would a state invest billions of dollars into an airline that has frequently operated at a financial loss? Why subsidize business-class luxury and global expansion during economic downturns? The answer lies not in the airline's balance sheet, but in Qatar's understanding of the geopolitical utility of aviation. Qatar Airways is a strategic extension of statecraft, an elegant tool of influence that touches everything from diplomacy to national branding to global logistics. This strategy becomes clearer when one observes the symbiotic relationship between Qatar Airways and Hamad International Airport, a futuristic hub that was designed not only for efficiency, but for image. The airport is more than infrastructure. It is spectacle. It whispers modernity to every passenger who transits through its gates. And it ensures that even if a traveler never steps outside into Doha's streets, they leave with a curated impression of the country, an impression of precision, wealth, and welcome. Through Qatar Airways, Doha connects itself to nearly every major capital on Earth. The airline's route map is a physical manifestation of the country's diplomatic ambitions. Where embassies cannot reach, aircraft can. It's no coincidence that Qatar Airways often expands into new markets shortly after diplomatic agreements are signed, or that its services are maintained in conflict zones and politically sensitive areas. These routes are not always commercially viable, but they are strategically priceless. Moreover, the airline serves as a direct counter-narrative to regional instability. In a part of the world often associated in Western media with conflict and conservatism, Qatar presents itself through the airline as an exception, modern, efficient, safe. Qatar Airways becomes the elegant ambassador that welcomes the world aboard, offering champagne and service with a smile, even as it reminds passengers, subtly but persistently, of where they are. This soft power projection is amplified by timing and global context. The early 21st century saw a vacuum in global aviation leadership, particularly as Western airlines faced rising costs, union pressures, and aging fleets. Gulf carriers, Emirates, Etihad, and Qatar Airways, rushed in to fill the void, but only Qatar built its brand with such calculated political alignment. Where Emirates remained focused on commercial dominance and Etihad struggled with identity, Qatar Airways made itself indispensable to the state's global narrative. The airline's sponsorship of major events and institutions further entrenches this strategy. From being the official airline of the FIFA World Cup to partnerships with European football giants, Qatar Airways links its brand to the passions of billions. These associations are not incidental. They are deliberate moves in a broader chess game of global attention. The World Cup itself, hosted in 2022, was not only a sports event, but a culmination of decades of effort to place Qatar at the center of global conversations. Qatar Airways, wrapped in special liveries and flooded with international passengers, was central to this story. But soft power is not simply about visibility. It is about shaping narratives. And here, too, Qatar Airways plays a subtle but effective role. Every interaction with the airline, from airport lounges to in-flight entertainment, becomes a touch point for narrative control. The country's flagship media network, Al Jazeera, shares this purpose in a more direct way. But Qatar Airways does so with elegance. It reminds the world, not with a broadcast, but with an experience, that Qatar is a place of refinement and ambition. Of course, this strategy is not without tension. Critics have often questioned the airline's labor practices, its environmental footprint, and the ethics of state subsidies in international competition. Western carriers have lobbied fiercely against what they call unfair advantages. But for Qatar, these criticisms are the price of relevance. In a world where image is power, the returns of operating such an airline exceed the costs. The criticism, paradoxically, is a sign that the strategy is working. Beneath it all lies a more profound question. What does it mean for a state to build influence not through force, but through hospitality? Not through coercion, but connection? In the case of Qatar, the answer is stitched into every seat of its airline, embedded in every airport corridor, and reflected in the faces of its cabin crew. It is a strategy that transforms soft power from abstraction into architecture, from theory into air routes. As geopolitics continues to shift and as new centers of influence emerge, Qatar's example raises an important consideration for small states in an increasingly multipolar world. Influence is no longer about armies and threats. It is about perception, positioning, and presence. And sometimes that presence comes in the form of a Boeing 777 with Arabic calligraphy on its fuselage, soaring silently over borders that diplomacy alone cannot cross.